Right, which brings me to Vic. I've known Vic for quite a while, and I'm delighted that we counted on each other as friends as well. One of apart from when I first came across him when we sort of worked on his book together, I brought and I'll tell this story, Vic, because it sums you up in so many ways. I brought a team of visitors from Chile. We've been doing some work in Chile with schools from some of the poorer parts of Chile. And we brought them to the UK. And one of the first schools we visited was Vic's school. And in Chile, as soon as you meet anybody, you hug them, you kiss them, whether it's the bank manager, it's just what you do. But I had to try and brief these people from Chile to say, look, you're going to meet a head teacher, who's a very important man. We don't go around, this was a few years ago, we don't go around hugging people that we don't know. It's just shake by the hand, it's fine. And as soon as we walk through the door and Vic emerges into the reception area, it's hugs all around, right from the start. And I come back to that story because it not only just makes me laugh, but it sums up Vic, but it also sums up the school. And if I say Vic's got a big heart, which he has, I can also say that the school has got a big heart. And I just, for those people, Vic, who don't know you, haven't visited the school, or maybe missed your more than 15 minutes of fame on the telly, what do I mean when I say your school's got a big heart? Go from there.
I guess the fact is that we recognise that a human being needs to be in the right place to learn before they can learn. And so, we are accepting of the fact that we need to know what's going on in young people's lives, and that we're going to be involved in that we need to help them to understand that in order to give them the capacity to learn. Dave Whitaker, one of the associates, uses a fantastic analogy about a glass of water. And for some young people, they come to school and their glass is only half full. That's a good thing, because if you drop a pebble in it, it doesn't overflow. And and during a school day, you drop lots of pebbles on kids. It could be a row with their friend, it could be a maths lesson they find really difficult, and little pebbles are dropped on them all day. But if a kid turns up and their glass is already full because of a situation at home or somebody's passed away or whatever, and you drop a pebble in it, it instantly overflows. There is no leeway. There is no slow build up, and you can see a child digging themselves a hole. They go from 0 to 100, instantly. And for me, an acceptance of the fact that we need to know that, and that's our starting point. That young person as a human being is a starting point, and then them as a learner, them as everything else comes next. And that, for me, our ethos is set up around that, and that drives everything else. We have vertical tutoring, so it's as close to Harry Potter without broomsticks as I think you'll find. They go to a house group, they're in a vertical tutor group with 5-year 7s, 5-year 8s, 5-year 9s, etc. And trying to get them to understand that they're part of, they're an individual, but they're part of that smaller family group, and they're part of a bigger house family group, and they're part of a bigger school family group, and to see that all of our actions affect lots and lots of different people, and likewise actions happening to young people outside of school affect them. And for me, that's a fundamental belief that you either start from or you end up chasing. And I think once you chase it, the damage has already been done. If it causes, forms the core of what you do and what you believe, well, actually you'll catch them before they fall rather than pick them up after they have. And I think that's sort of at the core of the ethos, I think.
Yeah, no, and also the physical structure of your school.
Yeah.
No, you had sort of free reign, if you like, to create the school, but it is the physical representation of the culture as well. So just describe physically the school for those who haven't visited.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously for those that don't know, we were asked to move sites. So we were about 1.3 miles up the road in Harlow, and they closed the school on the current site that we're at now. And then I don't know how these things happen. They suddenly looked at a map and went, oh, blimey, all the schools are at that end of town, and we've closed the only one at this end of town. We need one down here. And so they asked us to move. It was in the days of building schools for the future, for those that remember that. And government fund, a commitment from the Labour government to rebuild schools. And obviously that we thought it would happen through that process. And then all of a sudden, we had a change of government. I just became head as the government changed, and the money disappeared, and we thought that was it. But then somehow Essex picked up a rug and found £25.5 million underneath it and said, build a school. So we're literally had a blank sheet of paper. And at the same time as we were given the blank sheet of paper and the money, BSF was cancelled. And so lots of people that would have been involved in the building process, from the local authority, from consultants on furniture and consultants on this, well, they all disappeared. And so we had a builder, an architect, and us all sitting around the table going, right, what shall we do? And so we were really fortunate. So we had, exactly as you say, we had an ethos already in a school. And what we could design was a building around an ethos. Whereas I think often you create a building and then you decide how that affects your ethos. And it can, and any building will. So it's the best way to describe it. It's sort of like a hand with 5 fingers on it. It was called by the architects, Jessica and Wiles, who were awesome. They called it the Splat. The special place for learning and teaching is what they tried to get away with calling it. And I told them I'm not going to use the word it was, but that's all a bit twee for me. It wasn't really for me. So, but yeah, so it's we've got a heart space in the middle, and each of the wings represents a group of subjects. So, you know, downstairs in one is humanities and upstairs is English and MFL, etc. So it's very much that every hour of every day, the young people leave their lessons and they move through the centre of the school, which we call our heart space, and the kids call it the heart space. And they move from one lesson to the other, and they can see their friends, they can see their brothers, they can see their sisters, and I can just step out of my office and look into the heart space and see the whole school moving. And so it's that feeling of coming together, I think, which is really quite important. That feeling of community. You know, we're a cooperative academy, and that feeling of community is important. I know lots of schools over the years have lost their whole school assemblies. They haven't got a space big enough to do that. And one of the big things for me was that central heart space. I needed to be able to get all of our family together, and really quickly. And how quickly can we do that? And there was an image, and I don't know, you may know this school. There was an image of, I'm sure it was a school in Denmark, of an assembly happening in this school in Denmark, and it was in a heart space, and all the kids were just sort of around it, and the head was sort of talking to the students all around them, and it was lovely. And I thought, well, how close to replicating that can we get? And we, you know, I can do a whole school assembly within 5 minutes. I think you've probably actually seen one of our whole school. I think you've probably been in for a whole school assembly. You know, I can do a bing bong and our mic and go, everybody heart space, please, whole school assembly. Year 11 join me on the upper walkway and everybody else on the lower space. And within 5 minutes, they're all there, and we can get together for Remembrance Day. We can get together for all the things we want to celebrate, and we can get together for all the things we want to try and rectify. So that central space, you know, lots of people say it's got a feel of a shopping centre because of the walkway upstairs and things like that. I don't know what it feels like, but for me, that community, that sense of community is what the building, I think, brings to us, which is unusual for schools, because normally that's the sports hall that has to happen in, rather than all day, every day.
And what's significant, so you've got that heart space, and then you've got a school hall within it. Yeah. So it's not like you have to use the hall as the space for the assembly. And in that heart space, and I saw that, and I did see an assembly, and it was a Remembrance Day one. And yeah, bing bong, and everybody gathers, and they're standing up. And you're on the top floor on the balcony, if you like, but not from a position of control or authority. You've got the year 11s next to you, so it's not like Lord Vic on his
no,
and everybody else beneath you. There's a real sense of community, and for that one, then you had a trumpeter in who played the last post, and it was so moving to have how many hundreds of kids you've got in silence, apart from 2, I think, but you spotted them and you had words with them afterwards. But inside,
we went to the War Memorial afterwards. That's what happened. If they did, we went off to the War Memorial to have a chat.
I love that. Spot on. Just that sense that working at how the building can work at that emotional level, and so much of independent thinking's work has been about the role and the power of emotions when it comes to learning, being ready for learning, like you're talking about with Dave Whittaker's with the glass. If you're not in that emotionally positive mental state, it ain't going to happen. And what you do is you create that just by walking through the door. What you've also got, tell the people watching where your nurture room is.
Yeah, well, so obviously for lots of schools, you'll have an inclusion area or an exclusion area, whatever you want to call it, a removal space, withdrawal space, or somewhere where you're going to meet the needs of young people with special needs. Ours is in the middle of the school. It's above the school hall, and the thinking behind it was it is the highest place in the building, so it's the place above everything else, and it's also smack in the middle, and everything else radiates from it. So we call that our access centre. So our access centre is probably in the nicest part of the building. It's got a lovely, great big circular window above it, and actually, for me, that message of the young people who need that little bit extra shouldn't be stuck down a dark corridor so the visitors can't find them. They should be absolutely the centre of what we celebrate about our school. you know, that anybody, if a visitor comes, they visit our access centre and they will see our young people in there. And actually, they shouldn't be embarrassed about being in there, and we shouldn't be embarrassed about showing people it. And for me, that message, that physical message of it being absolutely at the core of everything we do. We start at the bottom. We start picking up the kids who need picking up first, and we teach the strong ones to help pick them up. And actually, if we start at that stage, then everything else builds to it. And that's the same with the building. Our central point, our highest point, the point that oversees everything we do in this building is inclusion. And the kids in inclusion are the ones that far too often are at the end of the corridor, not in the middle.
It's significant when you visit to see that at the centre of the school and up high, there's the nurture group, and that it is about nurturing. It is about support. It's not about difference or alienation. It is significant. A question come through from Ollie, and we talk about relationships, and we've talked all week in so many ways about relationships and knowing children and letting them know you and connection, and especially, and we'll come back to going back in our COVID world, how we reconnect and how important it is to reconnect. But the question is, so is there a line between how much the adults should know and how much they are permitted to know? I sense that some information about learners is rightly or wrongly off limits to all but a few adults in the school. Is this standard practice, or do you think it's desirable for a class teacher to know everything about the individual context? You've got some, challenging kids. It's a challenging area. Yeah. Harlow, there's all sorts of things going on. Is it important that every teacher knows every child's situation, or?
You know what? I think that's a really interesting one, because I think there is no one answer to that. The teachers need to know what they need to know. And you need to, for me, there's an expert in every child in our building, be that their form tutor, be it their assigned co-educator. So we call our learning support assistants co-educators, be it their assigned co-educator, be it somebody from our autism hub. They've all got a champion for them. Everybody's got a champion. And I'd want that champion to know all that they can about that young person to support them. That relationship then between that champion and that child then will dictate what other people need to know. And that's not for us as adults necessarily to lead. There are certain things that are off, we shouldn't be sharing, of course, and that I'm not going to talk down the nuclear options. But generally, if it's going to affect a young person's learning and it's going to affect their relationship and it's going to affect how well they can get through the day, then we should be sharing as much information as we can, but not in an overloading way. But we should never do it without the permission of that family and that child, and talk to them, say, look, this is why I want to share that information on you. Are you comfortable with that? And if they're not comfortable with that, and it isn't the be all and end all, you just need to let that young person needs to know, okay, they're not going to know that you've had your nan died, let's say. They're not going to know that. So they may not be as sensitive towards you as maybe I will be. You need to be able to deal with that. Are you going to be able to deal with that? If you can't, let me help you. And it's about dialogue and honesty and and trust between people, and that takes a while to build up. And I think that's one of the things that's a real worry with the transition into a new year coming up at some point, is that we're going to have a lot of young people who've had quite a lot of trauma coming in who we don't know, and that's going to be difficult for us because we rely on knowing our family. So I guess in answer to Ollie, there is no right or wrong for that. It's about truth, it's about having conversations, it's about honesty about the consequences of not sharing that information, and also the consequences of sharing that information, and a case-by-case decision.
I like that you're asking the children, how do you want to play it? And I know from experience that there are certain children that have the home is home, school is school. I don't want school to know about it. I want them to be supportive. There's stuff going on, but they don't need to know all the nitty. Whereas other children, I want them to know everything so that I don't have to keep explaining it to myself, and they understand. So involve the children in the dialogue and doing things with them and not to them or for them, which is some of the stuff that Mark Finnis was talking about from restorative practices. You do it with, not to, not for, not at.
There is a point though in every relationship, and especially whatever we say, it's a hierarchical relationship where my experience, my knowledge, and my understanding of the world will have an impact. And I would, it will be. I strongly think we should do this, because it's for the best. And you have to trust me that I've been through this before. For you, this is a first horrible experience. For me, I've done 25 years of this. And there will be a point where you go, actually, as the adult, and as the person who's responsible, I need to share this now. And that's, you know, you're back to the confidentiality thing, aren't you? I can't keep anything confidential. But the reality is, it could be not just about a confidential bit of information. It could be just something that somebody else knowing is going to help that child, but that child doesn't realize it. So even though it is about conversations with the children and getting their permission, there is also an element of accepting the fact that we are experts in what we do and we have their best interests. And occasionally I've upset a child because I've done the right thing, not the thing they want me to do. And I think we must always have that card, you know, and you just hope that in your explanation of why, your relationship is good enough that they accept that.
Well, that's what I was going to come back to. Use the T word, which has been used quite a bit over the course of this week of conversation: trust. Extent to which the government should trust head teachers as professionals, that head teachers should trust teachers as professionals, that we can trust children. So what you're talking about is you work on the relationships, and we've just had Jim Robertson in one of these conversations. It's all about the relationships, because once you get those in, so many of the other things then fall into place. You get the relationships right, and then even though they disagree with you, you've got the trust there. You've done the spade work in order to be able to say, okay, you've got to trust me on this, but you do, don't you? Because we're good, and then go from there. So no,
you must be exhausted. If you've just spent an hour with Jim, you must be exhausted, because he came and did a whole day's training for my staff on behaviour and relationships. And I was knackered by the end of it, because he is a bundle of energy. My God.
Jim Robertson and Dave Keeling together.
Oh, did you? Oh, good luck. I'm glad.
The lights were fizzing for that. Let me sort of go back to your role, because you probably still are. I know there have been other television programmes in a similar vein since yours, but yours was the first in Educating Essex. But you're still probably looking around the highest profile head teacher in the land. Let's say that's you. I think I can't think of anyone else that everybody would know of when it comes to head teachers.
I think Catherine Burble Singh will be up there.
Yeah. Anyhow, you wrote this book, and we were trying to work out what title for the book, and that was just one of the phrases that you were using. And I just wonder now, 6 years on, whether you're still happy with the title, and the title is "It's the best job in the world, being a head teacher, the best job in the world," or whether you should have called it, you know, good days and bad days, but you know.
No, I am still happy with it. I might put a brackets around it saying, but it has its moments, right? But no, do you know what, Ian? I think what's throughout this process and throughout the last 8 weeks of lockdown and the preamble to it as well, I think I am in such a fortuitous position having the job that I've got, because I have a sense of purpose. I wake up every day with a sense of purpose and knowing there's things for me to do that will make a difference. And that gives a drive and energy to my day. And I think if I wasn't in the position I'm in now and didn't have things to do that would be influencing other people and helping other people, I'd probably be struggling through this process. You know, this has been a tough week for me personally. Yesterday was my brother's birthday, who passed away a few years ago. My big brother got knocked off his bike 2 nights ago, and ended up with brain scans, etc., etc. You know, and thankfully he's okay. You know, we've had our 19th bereavement today across our family of children. You know, so it's a tough week personally, but knowing that even though it's tough, and you know, I've got amazing support networks, including people like you, Ian, I know I've got the support around me to get me through those, and so it gives me a sense of purpose. So how lucky am I to have that right now? Today, I woke up thinking, right, what am I doing today? Fantastic, I can do that, I can do this. So, no, I don't think I'd change the title. There are times when I'd probably pick up the book and throw it across the room because it's so frustrating. But no, I don't think I'd change it if I'm honest. But it certainly has its peaks and troughs.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. What would you? And also what I'm aware is how much support you give to other head teachers because of your profile, and because people know that you've got the big heart and that you're putting the children first. Yeah, you believe in education. You believe that you've got to play the game with regards to the Ofsteds and the academies and all of that stuff. But people know that you put people first. And I think people connect with you because of that. And I'm aware that you've got head teachers around directly by DM, maybe on Twitter, who are sort of looking to you for guidance is maybe too strong, but just the support to know you're doing that they're doing the right thing. How does that, is that part of your sense of purpose, that you're there to support others?
it's such a privilege, Ian, that, you know, you're right. I get a lot of DMs, I get a lot of emails, and often it's people who just want to say something to somebody that they're not certain who they can say it to. And also others that are feeling the same frustrations as I'm probably feel braver and more empowered to share those publicly. You know, I wrote a blog yesterday about keeping the noise out, shut the noise out sometimes, you know, and you'll know, because I do it to you guys sometimes. I just disappear for 2 or 3 days. You know, that I'm in the middle of something, you know, there's maybe a lot of emails flying around or a lot of Twitter action going on, but Vic's missing in action. And that's because I've reached a point where I just need to get my head down, and I need to stop listening to other things, because I've got enough advice, thank you. I've got everything I need to know, and I need to make a decision. And for me, lots of people aren't in the fortunate position that I am, that I've got a maths degree, so if they sack me, I'll get a job. So that's good news. But also that, you know, there is the privilege of being at school for a long time, you know, and I think I've got that advantage as well. You know, I mean, 20 years, coming up to 20 years at Parsons, 10 of which at Head. And therefore, people know who I am. I'm not a surprise to anybody. And staff stay or they leave. And if they stay because I'm there, that's great. And if they leave because I'm there, that's a shame, but they'll find a better head for them somewhere else. And so, but because I've been there that long, I haven't got to fight for the trust of my staff. Do you know what I mean? I have that. And so I can say and do and make decisions on their behalf, knowing that with fairly good certainty, they're going to come with me. Other heads aren't in that position. And just having somebody to go, I'm not being mad, am I, if I think this? And just for you to go, well, no, you're not being mad because it's your thoughts and therefore that's fine. But have you thought of what that knock-on effect may be for somebody else? And in my blog, I said, I might be the noise for some people. You know, me blogging, me emailing, or me tweeting may be, oh, shut up, Vic, I've made my mind up. That's okay, mute me, block me, take me out of the loop, because your decision is your decision. It needs to be right. So it's an absolute privilege. I am really lucky that people do reach out and get in touch and ask me for stuff. But what they always forget, and if they think it's a one-way street, they're kidding themselves. Because all I ever say, if anybody wants to come and visit, I say, fine, come and visit, but you have to bring me an idea that I can pretend was mine when you've left. You know, it's because actually I've learned more from other people visiting than I think they've learned from visiting us. So it's an absolute privilege for people to feel that they can trust me. But, you know, if that stops, I'm lucky, because I'm in a building and in a community that is just so vibrant and so fulfilling that it's another bonus. It's not the be all and end all, it's another bonus.
I like that. You know, you can come and visit, but bring an idea that I've seen the way you use funks. It's true. You do nick people's ideas. Yeah.
Occasionally, I put your name up under them.
Oh, occasionally.
Only very occasionally.
I think that's good, because it shows that you are, I mean, I use the term with independent thinking, porous, that it's not a one-way street. It's not we know and we shall bestow our wisdom upon you. It's just tell us, you know, involve us as well. That's why in these What Now Week conversations, we've had associates and people who are not associates. So, for example, the one we've just finished, after Jim Roberson and Dave Keeling, we had Nina and Kelly Hanahan, who was working around mental health and well-being of teachers and things. And we'll take all ideas. It's great. We're not precious about any of it. And I think that's important when you're in a position like you are, that you're still learning and you're still keen and you're still open. And I think that's one of the things that people really appreciate. With regard to that, and also what you were saying about missing in action, and yeah, it does happen. And it's fine, because I know what you're doing. You're saying, no, I'm putting myself first. And one of the things in the conversation we just had about the mental well-being of staff, that was what the conversation was with Nina and Kelly, was, you know, like Nina talks about booking a meeting time in your diary just for yourself. And then when people ask you to do something, you say, no, I'm in a meeting. And people won't then say, oh, well, you've got to put me first. Meeting, people will just, I'll come back to you when you're finished. And we're saying, well, you can't spell meeting without the word me. So it's just, no, back off, I'm not here. So with regard to mental health and well-being, and I want to think about your staff, because I know how much you put in place for them, and I've seen you speak at conferences about that, but also from your own perspective, because I know what a chat, and my wife is a head teacher as well, I know how hard mentally the job is. And you've got a situation where you've got people who could be great heads going, I don't think so, because it looks really hard, and I don't want to, you know, I want my life. I don't want to die young. I've got a family. And you've also got people who are heads, really good heads, who are just saying, nah, enough's enough. This is not good for my head. I'm going to go and do something else. how do you look after your own emotional well-being? And you said you've had a really difficult week, Vic. I'm sorry to hear about your elder brother, but I'm glad he's okay. And anniversaries, we'll talk about anniversaries with Winston Wish tomorrow, because they're so significant.
Yeah.
So how do you look after yourself? And also then from the leadership point of view, how are you looking after your staff?
Yeah, I guess from a personal perspective, I've got, I wouldn't say I've got a massive group of friends socially, because I'm too, I think lots of heads will say they have a small group of friends because you're busy and you only find time for some, and then the others, you lose by the wayside. So I've got a very close group of friends that are really valuable to me, and they're not in education, lots of them, which is helpful. Interestingly, the Head Teachers Roundtable, which I know lots of people who are on Twitter will know, and maybe have been to the summits, and again, was started by you, that I got invited to. So, grateful for that. But that, I actually said to them last night in the DM group we've got on Twitter, which if it was ever made public, we'd be in all sorts of trouble, because we actually, that's a place that it's a safe space for all of us to vent and to say what we need to say. That's important to me. And often I will read the stuff that's in that sort of DM thread amongst those fellow head teachers and not contribute, but just read and feel comforted, and just go, okay, they're thinking the same way as I am. I will now go back to what I was doing. So it's about having an outlet. It's about, I'm lucky, I've got, fantastic family around me. I've got a brother and a sister that are both teachers who sort of get it. My big brother was a head teacher who get that as well. So I'm very fortunate that I've got a group around me, and it's not always the local thing. And I think that's been really healthy. I've got friendship groups and professional learning groups away from my own environment, away from the town, which means there's no element of competition within that. There's no element of, oh, Vic's doing that, maybe I need to think about doing it. It's purely comradeship, and I think I use the word comrade quite a lot in tweets to people, because I think comradeship is so important, and I've got so many comrades. And I don't mean that in a Stalinist way or anything else. I have a load of comrades who understand, empathise, aren't going to be upset if I disappear for 2 days and then come back. And that's important for all of us. With regard to staff, I think that's, sorry, Ian, go on.
That family comes in many shapes or forms or something. Yeah, I think you're on Twitter quite often. So, and I think that's important.
Yes, it's in the front of the book. I mean, the dedication at the front of the book says family comes in many forms, and I've got many families. I'm lucky to come from a very tight South London family, and we will look after each other. But also I've got other families around that I'm involved in. I feel privileged to be part of. So, and that's so vital. I mean, my blood family are involved in education, so they do understand. But quite often you haven't got people in your immediate family that are in that place. So you need other people you can trust to be you with, professionally, not just personally. And I'm lucky to do that. And it's just about communication. With regard to staff and things around school. It's just for me, it always comes back to integrity, all comes back to honesty and truthfulness. I am who I am. When I was coming to be head, I was deputy head at Passmore's, and the head was Kevin Sadler, who I owe huge amounts to. And Kevin, last things Kevin said to me as he was leaving, and I was becoming acting head at the time, was, remember the gravitas of the job. Because he knows me. He knows that, there's sometimes the filter between brain and mouth isn't always as strong as it could be, maybe. And actually, I thought about it, and when he said it, I thought, oh, I've got to be this and I've got to be that. And then actually, when I came to the job, I couldn't be anything else but me. And that does mean that I drop the ball. It does mean I say inappropriate things occasionally. And it does mean that I have to say sorry. And that's okay. That's okay. That's who I am. I cry. I get invited to kids' drama productions when they're doing little things for GC purely because they know I'll cry. I know that. I know that's why they invite me. Little buggers, I know that's why they are. They put me right in the front. We're making sure there's a camera on me so they can get it for their drama representation that I've made their head cry. Because that's who I am. And it's never going to change. And if I try to stop that, my stomach ulcer, which I got 20 years ago, is going to come back. So it's about honesty. I'm honest to the staff. When I will send an email this evening when I finish on this, having caught up on the daily briefing, sort of summarising the briefing, setting 50 or 60 quiz questions on a different theme, and sending us funny video for the day, and just letting them know that we're still here and there's nothing's changed or this has changed. And it's just about regularity of contact. It's about them knowing that you're there all the time, you may not be waving at them or knocking on the door, but you're there if you need them. And that, once they are believing in that, once they trust that, then actually so many other things then fall into line.
No, that makes sense. With regard to so you've talked about communicating with them since the closure, staying in contact, and the laughter and being yourself. How have you, with the closure, if we're saying relationships are so important, and the physical proximity and the space, the heart space, how have you maintained your culture and your ethos with people being disparate, and also bearing in mind you're serving quite a socio-economically challenged area, that some of them may not have access to technology, as we've been hearing about recently, to be able to attend a Zoom lesson or whatever sort of things you've got. How have you maintained the ethos through this?
I guess it's about thinking equitably. For me, the tech part of this lockdown has been a real frustration. It's been a frustration because it's been seen as the panacea for everything. It's gonna solve all the problems. It will solve the education part of it. It means they can all be at home and still be learning and stuff. The reality is, and a really clear reality is, yeah, a kid may say, yeah, I've got technology at home, but I've also got 3 brothers and a mum and dad who need to use the same one piece of technology I've got. And those young people are probably using whatever technology they've got to socialize, because that's the only reason they can get in touch. They're probably using whatever technology they've got also to entertain themselves. And then if I'm asking to use that same bit of technology to educate themselves, they might be online for 15, 16 hours a day. And we know the damage that could do to them mentally, psychologically, etc. So for us, it's been about whatever decision we've made, we mustn't punish those that aren't able to join in. And I think that's been the key. So, we do send a letter home every week to families, and, every parent has got an email address, and be that on their phone or anything else. So, I write to them once a week. I may write to them in the middle of the week if, like, for instance, an announcement is made in order to take the eye off what's actually happening in the world by the government. I can't imagine they'd ever do that. But, they suddenly crowbar in a new announcement about schools that none of us were expecting on the same stage at the Prime Minister's getting difficult questions. My job at that point is to try to explain that to families almost straight away, to say, look, this has just been said. Before you panic, before you spin out of control, this is what it actually means. And I think that's been that then knowing that we're constantly thinking about them and making sure that if something comes up, we communicate with them. There's a sense of comfort for me that comes. If I wait a day, I know that I'll get some answer from Passports or from Vic or from Natalie, my co-principal. It's just regularity and being completely honest. There's been quite a few times when I've written to parents over the course of the last few weeks and gone, I actually don't know what this means to us just yet, but bear with me, because you want answers. The moment something's done, they want an answer. When they made the announcement about laptops coming out on a Sunday afternoon at 4:30, I had a woman in reception, one of our parents in reception, at 9 a.m. the next morning saying, can I have my laptop, please? That gap has to be filled because it's a knowledge gap, and it breeds insecurity. So regular contact about the simplest things. We've done a video a week. We've made a video, the staff have made a video a week and just put it out. We had one about being kind, one about trying new things. That sense of community you get from doing something creative together has been really noticeable. So, we've made decisions completely based on let's not leave anybody behind. And if you're frustrated because we're not giving your child 27 hours of online learning a week, here's the access to it. Feel free to make that choice for yourself. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we can meet everybody's needs, not just some. And families are now used to that, and that's okay. And they are quite comforted by that. So at the moment, we're in the marking stage of our home learning. We do nothing online here. If you think in this moment, we deliver no home learning online. None of that is happening. We are sending paper copies home for families to do stuff. We're sending booklets home. They can then send them back and we mark them. Could they do more if it was online? Absolutely. They 100% could. Could they all do more online? No. 20% of our school does not have access to technology on a day-by-day basis. So don't leave them behind. And if they trust us not to leave them behind, they'll trust us on other things.
But could people argue that by keeping everybody together and doing it by a pen and paper, that you're holding some back by keeping some up? What are you?
Yeah, of course.
Are you sacrificing success for equity?
You're not trying to call me an enemy of promise, are you, Ian? Don't call me. Please don't go there. No, because that's still available. I would never stop a child from accessing that stuff. We have Tassamay, Hegarty, Maths, Century Tech, all of these amazing pieces of software, these amazing platforms full of fantastic information, which will help children be more successful in their examinations, without a doubt. There's not a doubt in my mind. It's there. You have access to it. We've sent the login time. We've sent the password time. There's not one piece of work on those sites that's wasted. All of it will contribute to the final product. If you want your child to do more and you want to do that, that's to you, because you're their mum, you're their dad, you're their carer. We're going to say, this is what we need you to do to go over old work. So we're going to refresh that work. And here's a list of, I think we sent out 60 activities. It might have been more than that you could either do as a family or individually. You could, one of them, food tech. Whoever set in work for food tech, just turn to bloody cook. Cook a meal for your family once a week. If that's not learning, what isn't? Do you know what I mean? I don't get it. So for us, yes, you could argue that, but we are not stopping them having the opportunity to do it. What we're doing is making sure that we start with an even playing field. And there were some young people that work harder than others. There are some young people that do things differently to others. That's just human nature. Yeah. But I'm not going to be the cause of the anxiety. I'm not going to be the cause of the inequity.
No, I like that. So when we talk about, and the government's talking about the gap and closing the gap, and they're leveraging schools open because of the gap, as if there wasn't a gap before, even though in Scotland and in Wales, they're saying, well, actually, it's not safe yet. We don't know, so we're not going to do that. So what's your view of the gap?
I guess the problem is, Ian, right, is that Nick Gibbs spoke at the Education Select Committee this morning, and he made it very clear that in some instances, the government has chosen not to follow scientific advice because it wouldn't be best for the economy. It wouldn't be best for getting people back to work. And he said that wasn't, something that we've insinuated. That's what he said. And the reality of that, I understand. I want my kids back. I want them in school tomorrow if we could. If I thought I could do it safely, they'll all be back tomorrow. And actually, the guidance they're putting out just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because as you said at the beginning, the tiniest little difference between one school and another could change everything we have to do, literally everything we have to do. So, we simply need the government to tell us, this is the science, this is the things that you need to consider. We'd like you to open your school up more, starting with year 10 and then seeing how far you can go. Then let me make a decision, and I'll be happy with that. And my community will then either come with me or not come with me. But it's been the obfuscation and the frustration that it's causing by just not having that humility in the leadership we've got at the moment is just killing me. Honestly, it's killing me.
Yeah. What is your plan for immediately going back? What's your priority when you get back to the door? Yours.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't care what their priority is, if I'm honest. The bottom line is that we need to know who's walking back through our door, because for some of those young people, they'll be different to the ones that left. They'll be a different person because of what they've experienced, because of what they've had to do as a family or what they've had to cope with. And the first conversation needs to be, how you've been doing for the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever that is. What's happening at home? Have you been able to do any of the work? Yes or no? We're not going to put pressure on you, but have you been able to? What's been going on with stuff around you? Once we've got that knowledge base, and having good knowledge and having knowledge focus is a very big thing at the moment. Right now, the knowledge I need is, how can I help? Not how do I do Pythagoras? So we've got plans, and our plans will be very clear, and we'll make sure that everybody can buy into it. But we'll start with a conversation. We'll start with a human being sitting down opposite another human being saying, I really want to know how you are, and I'm going to listen. And I'm actually going to listen. I'm not going to make any other decision about what we're going to do with your life or how we're going to help close the gap until I know that bit first. The disadvantage gap has been there for as long as they've been measuring. It has hardly shifted, no matter how many billions of pounds it's been spent on it. And we have to accept the fact that what's likely to happen, and we can already see it, open up in the summer holidays, open up at Easter, open up at this point. Let's do more. Let's make the kids do more. Let's try and find these 8 weeks, 10 weeks we've lost. Well, actually, that's not fair. And the government could make some really simple changes in the short term to assessments. If they don't want to do big changes because they've already thrown away all the stuff that would have been useful, then they can make some small changes right now. They can decide that for next summer's exams, instead of having questions, every question needed to be answered. Excuse me. Sorry, neighbour.
We'll edit that out. It's Nick Gibb coming on the door. So,
you know, I actually like. Where were we on about? Sorry.
The changes the government could make, the little changes they could make.
Yeah. So assessment-wise, you know, the exams are based on the whole syllabus. I understand that, and every kid has to do every question. Well, let's make them do 20 out of 25 questions on this next year. So if there's a piece of the syllabus that the school has missed because they haven't been able to catch it up, that child's not disadvantaged. So everybody now will score out of 20 instead of out of 25. But then if a school has missed a certain topic, no child's disadvantaged. Now that just takes a really simple, quick decision at government that will then release the pressure on schools and release the pressure on children. But you know, and I know that they want the pressure on us because then they want us to perform, they want us to offer more, they want us to be in at summer holidays. And actually that's just not going to help. It hasn't helped in the last 20 years to just do more of the same. You know, an intervention is the same shit with less people in it, bluntly. So it doesn't, that surprisingly enough, it hasn't helped. Surprisingly enough, doing exactly the same, but with just less people in the room doesn't actually do that much to help. So let's do something that will help. And, you know, we were in a meeting the other day, and weren't we, with Martin, and it was around, you know, this is a moment. We have a moment. Let's actually think, what could we change? We have a real opportunity with the world on pause just a little bit to decide what's healthier, what's better, and how we can make sure we're never in this position again.
Yeah, yeah. And to what extent do you feel you have power? To what extent do you feel powerless, which brings issues around stress as well? But to what extent do you feel you can make some fundamental change? Bear in mind, we're talking about what now, what changed, and what next. What?
Yeah.
I think you can.
Yes. Do you know what? The now I feel really empowered over. Interestingly enough, because I think they've been so inept. You know, when you ask directions from a fool, you tend not to follow them, and that's how it feels. Do you know what I mean? We're being directed by people who don't really get it, who make decisions and then have to change them. 11 changes in 48 hours to the primary guidance. I think 41 changes last week to the guidance over the course of the week. You know, because of that, because they're getting it so wrong, actually, my community would demand for me not to follow the guidance. That's what they would do. So that's sort of releasing. That releases a little bit of the pressure. I haven't got it to open on June the 15th if it's not the right thing to do, because they've already shown they're inept in making those decisions. I haven't got to go with year 10 if that's not what's going to work. They don't want rotas because rotas don't help unlock the economy, but they do help keep us safe. So guess what? I'm going to do a rota. And I was planning to open on June the 15th. That was what we were planning to do, probably. However, I'd be buggered if I'm doing it now. I'll open on June the 16th if I have to. But you know, I feel empowered because I don't trust the people who I'm supposed to be following, but the people who are following me do trust me. I'm empowered. I have the right to make the choice.
Yeah.
And they don't. So I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated they're not doing the really simple things they could do, but I'm also empowered in the fact that their ineptitude releases me. In
that vacuum, people can step forward with the right values in place and put the children, the human beings at the centre of it. So somebody, Daniel, who refers to himself as a disciple of yours.
Let me guess, it's Hawkins, isn't it? It'd be Hawkins, I'm sure. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so he's in charge of year 10. He's going to go back small classes, English and maths, because we're saying, okay, let's focus in. How will he reassure the parents that, okay, we're addressing English and maths, what about the other subjects? What if they fall behind? What if that? Any advice?
I guess it comes down to the quality of the relationship you've got with the community. You know, as I said, I've been here a long time, so I'm fortunate from that perspective. Do you know, I think that the only thing you can ever say to parents is we're professionals. We are aware of the full situation. We've lived through it with you. You know, I've got family. Daniel, I know, has got family. You know, I've lived through this with you. I'm going to trust my family, my children's schools to do what's right for them. I need you to trust us, and then explain what's going to happen. Be clear in what you're doing and why. Be honest. Too often we make decisions and expect parents to fall into line with us without questioning. Right now, I'm a bloody really questioning parent. You know, my son's school is, I've got a son who's year 12. He should be going back to school on June the 15th to go and do exams. Now, as much as my son would kill me if I stopped him from doing that, because he gets to go and see his mates, there is an element in the back of my head that's going, and why does he need to do those in school? Why can't he do those here? You know, why, if you don't trust us to oversee it properly, then there's a problem somewhere. So I think that from Dan's point of view, Dan, you know, feel free to phone me, by the way, later, Dan, if you want to have another conversation. But it's about being honest. Tell parents, this is a decision I've made, and this is why I've made it. I understand that something that won't please everybody, but it will please most of you, and I'll review that decision on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. Just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, honesty, integrity, trust are words that we keep coming back to.
Definitely.
And even the Daily Mail has turned against the government currently, which shows what sort of shit show we're in at the moment. Because of the lack of it. Let me just put one. We've got 4 minutes to go, so thank you, Vic. There's a lot of stuff going on in chat, so I know people are getting a lot from this. The B word. So one of the other things, apart from you got to catch up, you got to close the gap. You got to come in hard on behaviour as soon as it comes through the door, because these kids have been feral, especially the kids from the poor areas, because you know their parents won't be looking after them. So we've got to really come in hard. That's the message. What's your approach? What will be your approach to behaviour, bearing in mind that, you know, your catchment area?
Clear expectations. Just be completely open and honest. It's not difficult. These are the things we have to do. There is no choice, because that keeps people safe. If your child acts in a way that isn't going to do that and isn't going to keep people safe, we will need to remove them to keep people safe. That doesn't mean we're going to send them home necessarily. It may mean they go somewhere else. But I'm going to be honest. Clarity. My God, isn't that so easy to think that we could have? Clarity. They do this, this will happen. Please support us. You know, one of the big things that we phoned every parent of year 10 last week. So we phoned 240 parents last week of year 10 to say, what are you thinking about coming back? You tell us. We're going to tell you what we're thinking. What are you thinking? And we asked them at the end of that conversation, how many of you are willing to send your children back out? 240 parents. How many of you are willing to send your... We said the middle of June. This was before the June the 15th announcement. 91 out of 240 said yes. 91 out of 240 said they'll send them back. Okay. The others, probably half of the others went, I'll wait and see if you don't mind. You know, there were reasons for others. There were reasons with shielding and stuff for others. But a lot of them went, I want to see what it looks like first, and then I'll make my mind up. And I get that. So, you know, we're going to help them make that decision, so we're going to do a video of exactly what it's going to look like. We're going to play it out. We're going to show them where they're going to queue up like Sainsbury's. We're going to show them where they're going to go and have a temperature check. We're going to show them which bubble they're in, as that seems to be the words we're using. You know, which room they're going to be in, which desk they're going to be sat at, what it's going to look like. And we're going to send it out to everyone and go, this is what we can do. This is how we feel we can keep everybody safe and have them in school. Now make a choice. And actually, the thing that's, you know, I'm a working class lad. The thing that's bugged me is how we have a presumption that not having much money makes you a crap parent.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad, okay, dad plumber, mum housewife throughout my school life. If something was going wrong, do you know where they wanted me? Where I was the safest? Right next to them. Right next to them. Not anywhere else, right next to them. And so many of our kids are in the safest place in the world right now, and a handful aren't. And then that's down to us knowing who that handful are and putting things in place to make sure they're okay. But let's not patronize parents all of a sudden. Without schools, they're going to be suddenly doing a crap job, because the vast majority aren't. And the one you said, what next? The one thing I really, really, really want next out of this is for families to understand how wonderful it is to be together. and how they can find something to continue that, be it the family bike ride of an evening, which, you know, we do, or the game of darts of an evening that we do. Just something that says at some point during the day, every day, we're going to get together as a family and do something together, be it sit and chat, watch a movie, play darts, go for a bike ride. That's the what next. And if family suddenly starts to become what we consider family was and should be, then the world's going to be a better place, not just that children's life.
Wow, I love that. That's how, wow, that hour went, well, it did for me. I think it did for everybody else. It went quick. No need to apologise. It's just wonderful always to talk to you. Usually our conversations like this start with a hug and end over a few pints.
Absolutely.
We'll have to catch up on that. If anybody wants to carry on the conversation, at ITL Worldwide is our Twitter. Email me and I can field any more questions. Ian@independentthinking.co.uk. Find out more about Vic on our website, or how to get hold of him, www.independentthinking.com. Independentthinkingpress.com is the where you can get the books. All the Independent Thinking books are 30% off at the moment using a code CPD30. And if you want an ebook, 50% off using VAT50, because government's just knocked VAT off ebooks finally. So we're making those even more accessible. Remember, put some money in the buckets of either NHS Relief Project, Winston's Wish Big Issue, or RSPB. Thank you ever so much for everybody who's observed. We will put these online, all being well. We might have to edit out the neighbour visiting. We'll check it should be okay. We'll put those
they weren't visiting, they were shouting over the fence. It was okay. They were just shouting. They had a parcel for me. That's all it was.
Slice of life from the Goddard household. And I just want to say, Vic, thank you for being you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being part of Independent Thinking. Thank you for all you do. And I look forward to seeing you and giving you a hug properly as soon as we possibly can. Okay, cheers.
Yeah, I missed that. Thanks, Ian. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.